Welcome, everybody, to another Brian's podcast. I have a video for you today, which will probably explain a lot of stuff to a lot of people that don't know about the facts of the case. But these guys are going to be very upfront and forward in facts and telling you where to look to get the science on this. Instead of you trusting people that are telling you what they're told to tell you, you need to look it up yourself because they're telling you where to look. And I believe these guys. Jim Brewer is a comic, but he's got a podcast where he's just doing a lot of powerful stuff, and which he's interviewing Dale Bigtree, which is a huge for information during the time that was going on. This guy was trying to tell everybody, and not many people listened, and now they are listening. So here we go.
That's way better.
Hey, check one.
First of all, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to say it was a good year and a half, maybe.
Maybe it's really been time that's been flying by. It's really hard to judge time any longer, but it seems in a year-ish zone, sure.
But what I really admire was your passion. Because you had me on because I made a stance, and the stance was simply, hey, I don't want to play venues that are going to force people to get vaccinated. If we're at a state in our society where they're going to force you to stick a needle in you and we're not allowed to question it, we've lost. You're beyond slavery to me. You'll roll over for anything. So with that said, you had me on, and I want to thank you for just speaking that. And then we had a good. But what I love where you're at now, which I want you to tell everyone about, is this documentary that you made. And it's an inconvenient study is the name, and they can only get it on your web. They can only get it on highwire.com, or
no, they go to inconvenientstudy.com. It's free. You can watch it there. You can download the study itself. You can read the attacks. We deal with some of the attacks against the film at the moment. Yeah, it's all on inconvenientstudy.com.
Tell me about it, because listen, I know about it, you know about it, your fans know about it, a lot of my fans already know about it. But what blows my mind, Del, is still when we think people are really catching on and they're really starting to wake up, which they are.
Yeah,
they're still not. They have to hear. And I love what you did. Just tell people a little bit of what they're going to get out of this.
Well, in this conversation about vaccines and safety and freedom, which is at the heart of what, I really appreciated you brought to this, which, I would say beyond slaves. I think if you can be injected with products you don't have control over, you have the same rights as a farm animal. And that's what you're being reduced to. I mean, it's really simple in my mind. So ultimately, I'm just here to make sure that we're fighting to have a right to control what goes into our bodies. But in the pursuit of that, we should know, this idea that vaccines are safe and effective, and safe and effective is such a pile of baloney. And there's mountains of evidence, mountains of science.
Right.
The vaccines are safe, or vaccines don't cause autism. All of that, I have worked over the last, since, 2016 I've sued the government in this process to prove and show that and discover that it's like total bullcrap. But at the heart of this whole thing, really, if we want to end this conversation forever, it's a really simple study we can do. All we have to do, if vaccines are so great, just compare children who received their vaccines with those that never had any. And let's just ask really simple questions. Who had higher rates of ADHD? Who had higher rates of autism? Who had higher rates of, bowel disease? All these, and all the psoriasis. And if you think of every, commercial that you see on your television, the people are scratching and clawing and stomach issues, all that stuff. Let's just see who has the most of that. And so I challenged all the way back in 2016 when I first got into this conversation. I was traveling the country with a documentary I made then called Vax, From Cover Up to Catastrophe, which was specifically about autism and MMR vaccine and a fraud inside the CDC. But while I was on tour with that film, we were pulling up through Michigan, and someone reached out to me and said, hey, I know the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford Health in Detroit, Michigan. I mean, Henry Ford Health is one of our top preeminent research institutes in the world. And so I was like, sure, I'd love to talk to him. And so we met for dinner, and, you know, it started out with him making sure I knew that he was pro-vaccine, but he had watched my film. He thought it was interesting. But, you know, Jimmy started the conversation out at dinner in a way that sort of shocked me. He said, you know, I've been watching these YouTube videos of you around the country, and you've been saying something I took issue with. You keep saying that they've never done the proper science to prove that vaccines are safe. He said, so I sit on the biggest databases in the world, and that's what I do for a living. So I went and looked through those databases so I could bring you the evidence of the science that's been done. And he said, and I'm shocked that I have to sit across from you and tell you you're right. I did not know. We've never done any placebo trials. We've never established safety in any of the childhood vaccines. He was surprised by that. Now, he went on to say, but that doesn't mean, Del, that they're not safe. It just means we can't say that they're safe. And I said, yeah, you do say that they're safe. I mean,
Exactly.
That's my problem. You know, that's my problem. You know, and so that's how our conversation started. He made it clear, though, it wasn't going to change his deep held belief in vaccines. And he said, I don't know what I can really do for you or what I'm doing here. I said, well, how about this? Since you do big studies right up at Henry Ford, he's like, yeah, that's what I do. I said, why don't you do a study comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated kids? And let's let the chips fall where they may. If you're right, if vaccines are great, we'll see it in this study. And he agreed all the way back in 2016 to do that study. He kind of, you know, was probably, you know, a bet at a dinner that didn't want to get paid up. But, over the time, I kept calling and saying, hey, you ever going to do that study? By 2018, I flew in to really, I said, let me meet up with you. Let me bring a lawyer. Let's hang out and talk.
Right.
I brought Aaron Geary, the attorney that's winning all the lawsuits for us and my nonprofit. And we sat down with him and said, look, if you really want to show the world the vaccine, this is the study to do it. Well, let's end this conversation forever. There's a civil war going on in this country now around vaccines, and people are getting divided. Let's just put an end to it. And he said, you know what, you're right. And he agreed to do the study. He finally finished it in 2020 and then refused to publish it. And that was the only rule. We only had one rule. We said, Dr. Zerbos, no matter what you find in this study, publish it. He's like, I will. He's like, I'm a data guy. I follow the data where it leads me. And I even warned him, Jim. I said, if this study turns out the way I think it might, it could be very damaging to your career. And he said, I don't worry about things like that, Del. I follow the science where it leads me. And besides, I'm, reaching my retirement, age. So, and that's how he put it. But 2020 comes along. He's not publishing it. And I'm calling him. I was like, come on, Dr. Zerbos, what's going on? He said, Del, I did not set out to destroy the vaccine program. I said, come again. What about this? I didn't see it again. I was like, what in this study makes you think it's going to destroy the vaccine program? He's like, it's really bad. I said, bad how? He's like, I don't really want to get into details. So, for about 2 years, I kept calling saying, Dr. Zerbos, you need to do what's right. Whatever's there, just publish it. Get it peer reviewed. And so by 2022, I kind of had it, and I said, hey, I'm going to be moving. I'm going to be coming through Detroit for doing a speaking engagement out there. Why don't we grab dinner? He said, okay. And so I decided to bring hidden cameras with me and recording equipment so that I could record, the conversation I want to have, which is, why are you not publishing it?
Yeah.
What's it study that's got you so panicked? And we talked all about it. And of course, that's the heart of an inconvenient study. And, I know I'm being sort of flippant about it. It's it's really a tragedy watching this film, watching a man who could literally save millions of children's lives. He knows it. You can see him grappling with it, but yet he just can't get up the courage. And all I keep saying is, it's a good study, Del. People, I agree, it's important. but I'm not going to publish it because it'll be the end of my career. I'd be finished.
And that,
And
Del, here's the part that what I do enjoy about that. I think it's a lesson in life where we're at a time in history where are you going to sell your soul? Now here's a guy. He's not willing. He might have even been afraid. I can't speak for the men. He may have been afraid of getting killed. Because that's how powerful that industry is. That industry is powerful. I mean, they run governments mostly. I mean, they make a lot of decisions here. They make a lot of decisions worldwide. They got the entire world to shut down and be extremely aggressive about it. And if you question it, they really came after you. But it's like I understand at that point, but I pray to God that this doesn't continue, that a career or you. I would think I'd want that closure before I pass away, that I would feel dirty with that money, but I understand it. So what is revealed? Do you show what's revealed for the people that are interested?
So, the Henry Ford study is now circulating the world. So is this documentary. Many world-renowned scientists are now weighing in on it because it's so troubling. I will say, just for full disclosure, we received a cease and desist letter from Henry Ford Health before the film ever came out. They're threatening, they threatened defamation, that essentially they said we're asserting that the reason that the study didn't get published was because that Zervos was afraid of losing his job, and that it was the results of the study that panicked them and why they didn't. And they said the only reason this study didn't get published is it's not a good study and the data's bad, and that so we're misrepresenting it. Now, I will tell you, Jim, they sent that cease and desist letter prior to knowing that I had undercover footage of the head of their infectious disease department and the lead author on this study singing like a bird, singing the praises of this study, saying how important it was, and that the only reason he wasn't publishing it was because he was afraid to lose his job. But I just want all that to be stated. And by the way, you can at inconvenientstudy.com, we post the letter. You can see all the complaints by Henry Ford. I'm all about being completely transparent. This is science. This is a scientific method. We should all be debating this. If you got a problem with this study, I want to hear it. Let's have it out. But ultimately, what this study showed is, and it's about 18,500 children were in the study. So it's one of the biggest studies of its kind. Nearly 2,000 of them were unvaccinated. The other 16,500 are vaccinated. And they sort of tracked children that were born into the Henry Ford Health System and made it to about 4 or 5 years on average was the age of the children. And what they discovered was that the conclusion of the study that this very pro-vaccine scientist, Dr. Mark Zervos, wrote is you were 2.5 times more likely to develop a chronic disease if you'd been vaccinated compared to the children that had not been vaccinated. So 150% increased risk, not 2.5%, like, hundreds of percents. And then ultimately huge areas of like neurodevelopmental disorders, 6 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders if you've been vaccinated compared to not vaccinated, nearly 6 times the rate of autoimmune disease if you've been vaccinated compared to the vaccinated. There was categories we couldn't even get the statistics on because there were 0 children in the unvaccinated group. So you can't even do math. They just zero that out. It would be like 250, I think it was ADHD, had like 250 kids vaccinated in the ADHD group because 0 in the unvaccinated, they couldn't even come up with a 1 out of blah, blah, blah statistic. That was impossible to come to. So there's a lot of issues like that too. But ultimately, the scariest part of this whole study was they did a time-to-date analysis over the course of 10 years. What would the likelihood you would have a chronic disease be? And amongst the vaccinated, you come out at 57% of the vaccinated would have a chronic disease, and only 17% will have a chronic disease at 10 years old. That's a horrific stat. That is a Mount Everest between the unvaccinated and the vaccinated, and none of it looks good. So it's a really shocking study. People that go to inconvenientstudy.com, you can download the study, read the whole thing yourself, but you see why he was afraid to publish it and why he believed if it was published, it could spell the end of the vaccine program. And so it's shocking.
But
really shocking.
What people don't understand, which still blows my mind, is that I think in people's minds they just think vaccine should be trusted, and all doctors and the big pharmaceutical, no matter what, should be trusted. And we lived a lifestyle like that for a very long time. And maybe there was people in the very beginning that were caring, but the almighty dollar knows how to weasel its way in, and it knows how to find the areas that are going to search for more greed and not caring. I still say this to this day. So I had a neighbor that was into vaccines, and he was pushing me to get vaccinated during COVID, and I said no. And he said, "What are you afraid of?" I said, "I'm not afraid. Why would I just had COVID. Why would I?" And I tell him, I go, "Who in our neighborhood? I don't want to hear they died on television. I don't want to hear that it's in the paper. I don't want to hear. I want a name of the person you know that passed away. You know them personally, and they didn't die in the hospital. I don't want to hear they went to the hospital and died. I want to hear they were at home. And I'm not saying that didn't happen." And I go, until I hear that, I just came back from a tour. I did 60 cities. I did meet and greets at the end of every show. I went 45 different hotels. I met up to 140 people a night. I went on escalators. I played in Vegas. I got in taxis. I got in Ubers. I stayed at Airbnbs. I opened the doors of many, and I don't know. None of us died. So when you call it epidemic, they really. But what people need to understand is what a powerful movement that was. Now, if I can, I'm sorry, brother. What were you going to say? You're my guest. What were you going to say?
Well, sometimes I like to correct that, maybe only because I think it's hard to make that jump. You're right, money is infiltrated this thing, but it's not going to the doctor certainly not the pediatricians and things you're sitting across from.
Right.
They think they're doing what's right. They don't know their boss, right? Yes. That there's a giant bonus being handed to the hospital if the vaccine rate is at a certain level, and your boss at the hospital is saying, "I want you, if you have parents asking too many questions about vaccines, or if it sounds like they're going to skip one, you kick them out of the practice. You just tell them, you go ahead and leave and don't come back here until you're ready to get your vaccines." And that's how people are being treated. They don't understand why. And it's because you've got these quotas they have to make. The insurance companies are driving it. And you're right. I would describe it, it's a religion it's definitely more than a science. The science is not there. But boy, they have got us bowed down to this altar of Western medicine and lining up for vaccines. And all I'd say is this, Jim, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if we had the healthiest kids in the world. If this program was working and trusting our doctors really was making our children healthy, and they're just these bright, shiny, happy little children bouncing around. But 54% of our kids have chronic disease now. That's up from 12.8% just in the 1980s. What's the big difference? Well, there's a lot of things that happen. We had plastics and forever chemicals and pesticides on our food. But the thing that I'm tracking is we had 12.8% chronic disease in the 1980s. We were only getting 10 vaccines. And now when you look at 54% chronic disease, our children are getting 54 shots, 72 total vaccines, because many of them are multi-dose shots. And all we've seen is the greatest decline in human health ever recorded. To go from 12% to 54%, it's literally a coin toss. Flip a coin, and that is the chance that your kid is going to have a chronic disease the rest of their lives. That's not right. Your immune system shouldn't be attacking your cells in your own body. Something's gone off the rails, and we could blame a lot of things. I'd say, why don't we look the closest?
Yeah.
If autoimmune disease, which is immune dysregulation, if that's really what our problem is, the crisis of our time, why don't we look closest at the one product's designed to alter our immune system for life? Let's start there. Not with the fluoride in the water, it's a problem and all the other things, but this product is designed to confuse your immune system and make it think it's had a disease it didn't have. And we're not just giving you one confusing shot or 2 times or 10 times or 20 times or 50 times, 72 times. We are tricking your body into thinking it's had a disease. And oh my God, Eureka, we can't figure it out for some reason. Every human in America, our bodies, our immune systems are attacking the cells in our own bodies. Our immune systems are totally out of whack. And I don't know what we're doing differently. I don't know. We've been jacking with our immune systems, 6 times a year and 10 vaccines at a time. Let's start looking there.
It's just, if you said it, first of all, I saw a really great meme the other day, and the meme was like, "Hey, I'm going to the doctor to inject my kid with aluminum," and they started naming every single scenario.
Polysorbate, aborted fetal DNA, hamster kidneys, lung fiberglass from chimpanzees.
Right. And if I just told you that's what I was doing, most of society would say, "Whoa, what are you being serious right now?" But that's no, it's a vaccine, so it's safe. And I call it the SEAL syndrome. No offense to anyone, but it's just Here you go. Yes, this makes you safe. And I don't mean to making fun of people, but it drives me nuts. Here's 2 things too, Del. I was doing for a friend a benefit every year, and this was like right after COVID, and his daughter. Now we can't prove it's the day they pushed for the swine flu. This was years ago, the swine flu. So you need the swine flu vaccination. His child was 5 years old. And the next morning, she woke up paralyzed. Paralyzed. And what drives me crazy is the amount of people that will argue with you when you know as a parent exactly what is good. You know your child more than anything. You saw that child before they walked in that doctor's office. You saw that child before they took that swine flu shot. You knew that child. And now here it is the next day, and you're telling everyone, even the quote experts, "Hey man, my kid's paralyzed." Well, what they eat, a bad burger? Well, they did get a shot that had nothing to do with that. It's safe and effective. And all my life, one of the doctors told them, "Listen, you need to go see a specialist, like a neurologist, and you've got to get things out of her system." It was from the shot. Now, this is all just for entertainment, folks. Maybe I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So, and praise God, the kid eventually got healed way later. And one of my best friends, too, I'll say this, and I'll say 2 more things, I won't keep you long. One of my best friends, his child is autistic, and he always, once in a while, after a couple cocktails, will say, "Jim, I really do think it was the vaccine. My kid was fine until they got those vaccines. My kid was with me, so I won't." But what do you do? And every time he says that, I want to cry. Because there's just as many people that are venging, spitting out blood, spitting out, what are you, an anti? They made it political, that won't listen to this man. They won't listen to this human heart. And this is the human heart exists, and we know what we're doing here. We know what we see. And we're not trusting the television. We're not trusting who they say we should trust. We trust our hearts. We trust our instincts. It's not that hard, Del. It's really, this is the first time in my family that we have multiple kids that have something going on. We've never had that in existence of the entire Brewer family, ever. And it's the first time this generation is 3 kids, all something going on. So I praise you for the battle you've been doing. I know it's not easy because people don't understand. We are fighting a mafia. It's one of the biggest organized crime.
The biggest. This makes the mafia look like a joke. This is the power grabbing monster of the world. As you said, it got every government of the world to shut every citizen down. I would say every other world war was one continent against another or one nation against another. This was the first world war where it was every government against its people. And Pharma was behind it. Pharma did it. It was, and look, we could get deep in other conversations sometime about why, but vaccines is a perfect delivery system when you want to control your population. We've already caught them sterilizing girls in Kenya. We use vaccines to sterilize deer. I'm not saying they're sterilizing people now, but they want a system in place that you just line up. They give you whatever. You never ask a question. Don't ask what's in it. How many you giving me? What's going on? Are you giving me the same one as the guy that just walked in here before me and drove up in the Rolls Royce? Am I getting the same one? Now that I'm a poor person, I'm trying we're getting the same thing, right? You would never know. I mean, so it's a perfect delivery system. If they ever want to control the population through injections, right?
We're not saying that.
Choose whose DNA you really want to keep on the planet. They can do that with the vaccine program. All right, so.
hey, listen, Bill Gates. I know he's not a doctor. I know he's not a scientist, but heck, he knows the special when it comes to vaccine. He knows the amount of billions he made it. Crushing on vaccine, and he'll be the first one to look you in the face and say the best way to depopulate, let me repeat that word, depopulate. Did Bill Gates say that? Yes, he did. How to depopulate is through, we start with vaccines and we just jab them in the kids. It's on video, folks. What do you think, he's coming from the specialist arena? Anyway, amazing. I love what you're doing, man. Yeah,
it's important. And you're, to your friends that are going through that, I've done over 1,000 interviews. I've been very specific in my work as a journalist on this issue. These parents never want, they'll say, oh, they want something to blame. They want to blame the vaccine. I guarantee you, talk to anyone that's been through it. That's the last thing they want to blame. They are praying it's their DNA. Tell me it was genetic, that there was nothing I could do about it. This was just meant to be, and I'll hand it to God and move on with my life. It is what it is. But when they find out that I was making my child worse with every vaccine and I didn't get it, and I could have stopped this and not done it to my child, and then I stopped vaccinating my second child, and they're only partially injured. You know, they have Asperger's. My first child's got severe autism, will never speak again. My second child has an Asperger's. They're in college doing well. But my third child, no vaccines, valedictorian of the class, the healthiest kid you've ever seen, never gets sick. I have heard that story hundreds of times, Jim, you know, and that's what we're dealing with, right? And it's the gaslighting by our government, the gaslighting by this industry, and that's where I fault the doctors. The doctors have been gaslighting their patients. You know what? Wake up to the fact that we're at 1 in 12.5 boys in California being diagnosed with autism. All right, it hasn't always been here. There's not 12.5 men walking around right now. Jim and I don't have friends. We've never known anyone that had this issue. This is a crisis. It's taking our children away from us, and now 75% of children can't even qualify for our military. They're so sick. Okay, we're about to not be able to mount a standing army. We can't even mount a standing Starbucks if we keep this up. We have a real problem on our hands.
Well, I'll tell you this. You go. There's no passion the way you go. All right, so Del, I will tell you this, and I want all the moms to know what you just hit a point. Any parent out there, don't you dare feel guilty.
No.
Don't you dare feel guilty, because we were all fed information, whether you send your son to war and it turned out they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. We've all got guilt in our lives. Don't you dare let that rule, but please understand that's how powerful this machine is willing to go to make you feel that way. And the fact that every parent out there that's able to not to put those emotions aside and go, you know what, right now that is what it is, I'm going to deal with that's okay. What we do now is stopping this from happening to anyone, because I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through. So I praise everyone that's doing that right now. And listen, all the world's problems isn't vaccines. That's not what me and Dell are talking about here. But we have to stop avoiding putting our head in the sand. And, you know, I had a conversation, Dell, where a comedian called me, and he debated and argued with me for over an hour about, and he was going, and I would tell him examples of my friend and this one, and where do you get your, and the problem is a lot of society that goes, where do you get your information from? I get it from the same place you people do, where they all lie to your face your entire lifetime. Your entire lifetime. They sell you on wars, they sell you on hate, they say that, you know, to believe this and to believe that and to believe this and go do that, and then it turns out they lied, but they're not accountable. So where do you get your information? Real reliable sources? That's what it's like. People don't understand. This is real. It's very real. And we have to start grasping it, and we have to just go, you know what? There's something wrong here. I gotta check this out. I haven't watched it yet, and I'm not gonna pretend I did, but I want everyone to check this out, because I've seen scenes from this, and I know what you're about, and I knew you were on a mission from the day I met you. I'm like, this guy, he's not stopping. That big tree's got a studio. He's committed. Highwire, thehighwire.com is where we can find
this.
Show
is. Yeah, thehighwire.com, but then check out aninconvenientstudy.com. You can watch the movie for free right now, right there. It's super short. I think it's like an hour and 20 minutes.
Which is short, and it goes quick. It goes quick.
It goes quick, and it's getting really great reviews. A lot of people are reaching out to me and saying, my friend that was not listening on this, my loved one, my parent, my child, is going to vaccinate their kids. They've seen this movie, and now they're sharing it with everybody. It's a very powerful film, and it asks a very important question. Why is it that not a major medical institution in the world or a government or health agency in all this time has ever been able to do a study comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated children where the vaccinated came out healthier? This study's been done 5 times. This one in the center of this film is by the most reputable institution, and it's the biggest one of its kind. And it set out to prove all the other smaller studies like this wrong, and ended up proving the same thing. That's reproducible science. When your enemies try to prove you wrong and they prove you right, then I think you're onto something. We're onto something here. We've been onto something. This is a serious issue, and our kids deserve to be healthy. And if you think we just went back to living a more, basically natural life, your body wants to survive. It doesn't want to be sick. It doesn't need to be injected with monkey kidneys and aborted DNA and
aluminum,
mercury and aluminum and formaldehyde. It just doesn't need this stuff to be healthy. It's not helping us. So, yeah, check out the film, though. Look,
thank you.
We leave it objective. You decide for yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Do you think that we should have put this movie out? I mean, clearly Henry Ford doesn't want it out. This doctor, I think, when you see him, seems clear to me. He thinks this study's important. He's afraid, and we can't all die because someone's afraid to do what's right. And Jim, you're one of the few. You know what it's like. I mean, you talk about that. How many comedians? I mean, the rebels of our society all just chicken out.
Bands,
stuck their heads in their asses and
stars,
just like little baby rock stars, actors. It was pathetic.
Your
man.
favorite politicians just folded like babies, took the cash and said, "No, really, it's safe and effective." Okay, they even bullied you. When you gotta go on television and you gotta bully someone like, you know what the problem is? You, because you're unvaccinated, you are the when you gotta sell me, when you gotta get the mayor mayor of New York City, laughing in your face, eating McDonald's, eating McDonald's, horse meat, just, oh, so I get free French fries if I get vaccinated? Did anyone, if you said, well, because he's eating McDonald's, I gotta go get vaccinated, the mayor said it. If that's where we're at as society, I think we're in serious trouble. Serious trouble.
Definitely, but let's also, I like to also, I'm not a glass is half empty.
No,
30% of this country, 30% of this country rejected that vaccine with the greatest propaganda push and guilt trip that has ever been on television 24 hours a day. That's pretty good. And I would say, 50% of this country didn't want the damn vaccine, but their job was being taken away. They didn't know how to take care of their children, so they were just trying to do what's right to be a provider. So more than 50% of this country wanted to say, fuck you anyway. And so even with that mind-melting propaganda that Biden spent $10 billion on. So, I have hope. I have hope, man.
Me too.
The people are getting it. They're waking up. We're getting there.
Me too.
It's good stuff.
Del Petrie, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you.